Right, let's continue the story of rapid growth of Korean shipping during the take-up period. Let's move to next period of 1969 to 1981, when the private shipping has been grown dramatically. Number of shipping companies increased 2.9 times, 23 companies to 66 companies. Number of ships increased 5.65 times, from 98 ships to more than 550 ships. Tonnage, gross ton, increased 8.4 times, from 729,000 deadweight gross tonnage to 6,106, more than 6 million gross tons. Then, how to increase the tonnage during the period from 1969 to 1981? They have secured 66 ships by the planned shipbuilding scheme during 75 to 81, and secured 967 ships through the BBC HP during 1970 to 81. I will explain the BBC HP later. Okay, you can see the details of our policy to increase tonnage through the planned shipbuilding scheme in this slide. We have built heavy and chemical industries, including steel mill, shipyard, and oil refinery during the economic development plan. In the 1960s, Korean administration concluded that self-sufficiency in steel and the construction of an integrated steelworks were essential to economic development. Eventually, the POSCO began to produce their steel product in 1972, just 4 years after the company's inauguration in April 1968, with 39 employees in 1968. By the way, the Hyundai Heavy Industry Company Limited, called HHI in short word, is one of the world's largest shipyards. HHI was founded in 1972 as a division of the Hyundai Group and built its first ship in 1974. Korea Oil Corporation was established in 1962 in cooperation with the Gulf Oil, and it was privatized in 1980. Its new name is now SK Energy. Oil embargo, 1973-1974. During the 1973 Arab-Israel War, Arab members of the Organization of Petroleum Export Countries, we call OPEC, imposed an embargo against the United States. Therefore, the demand of oil tankers reduced sharply, and the Korean shipbuilding industry was expected to be faced on severe difficulty. Korea produces plenty of steel plate, and shipyards are ready to build the ship, but no orders from outside. Eventually, the planned shipbuilding scheme was introduced to link the shipbuilding to the shipping. They made a rule set for planned shipbuilding. the ship owner must make self-financing 10%, and 50% should come from the domestic fund loan and 40% of foreign currency loan. The tonnage acquired by the planned shipbuilding scheme was 1,259 ships, which is the 4.81 million gross tons during 1975 to 1993. It accounts for 14% of total new order for Korean shipbuilders, so they could survive by the planned shipbuilding scheme. Okay, let me introduce the BBC HP or BBC PO in other words. The full name is Bareboat Chart Hire Purchase, BBC HP, or Bareboat Chart Purchase Option in BBC PO. The BBC is a contract for the hire of a vessel for an agreed period during which the charterers acquire most of the right of the owners. BBC may be thought of as the marine equivalent of a long-term vehicle lease contract. BBC is most usually on a Beacon 89 charter party form. That is the standard charter party form for the BBC. BBC is used by owners such as banks and finance houses who are not prepared to operate or manage ships themselves. A bareboat charter, sometimes we call demise charter, is often hinged to a management agreement. BBC may be hinged to a purchase option after expiry of the charter or during the hire period. The hire payment may include installment of the purchase price, and the transfer of ownership may follow the final installment. In essence, the vessel owner put the vessel without any crew at the complete disposal of the charterers and pay the capital cost, but usually no other cost. The charterers have commercial and technical responsibility for the vessel and pay all costs except capital cost. Okay, the group of companies we call 재벌 in Korean word, accumulated capitals, became rich through the first to third economic development plans, which were initiated by states. So they are able to establish shipping business. They are 현대, LG, 국제, SK, Samik, etc., who has their own cargo. Second, the number of Korea Ship Owners Association members, which means the number of ocean-going shipping companies, has been increased from 21 companies in 1970 to 72 companies in 1978. Gross tonnage owned by Korean ship owners has been increased from 761,000 tons in 1970 to 7 million tons in 1980. you can see how many ships they, means the KSA member companies, purchased through the BBC HP programs during 1970 through 1983 from this table. They purchased only one ship in 1970, but 18 ships in 1972, and 57 ships in 1973, 119 ships in 1974, and 145 ships in 1975, which is the peak value. Thereafter, the numbers are gradually decreased. 113 ships in 1978, 82 ships in 1980, and 59 ships in 1983. Consequently, we can say that the BBC HP has been a major method of acquiring tonnage by Korean ship owners. BBC HP is the main source of acquiring tonnages. You see this graph. This graph shows the relationship between the amount of import and export and the ship's tonnage during the 20 years, during the first economic development plan to fourth economic development plan. The blue line, you see, the blue line indicates the increasing trend of ship's tonnage. You see, the very steep growth trend. The red line explains the growth tendency of amount of import and export, and the green line shows the trend of seaborne trade volume. As you can see, the year 1972 was the start line of a fast-growing economy in terms of the amount of import, export, and the ship's tonnage. Then what happened in 1972? What is the background of very rapid growth of ship's tonnage from 1972? Yes, we have introduced a BBC HP scheme in 1972, and the industrial capital started to establish shipping companies. Therefore, we can say that the BBC HP was the motive for the rapid growth of ship's tonnage in Korea. All right, let's move to human resource area. The maritime manpower is an important factor that cannot be ignored for the rapid growth of shipping in Korea. The entrance quota of two Korean Maritime Education Training Institutes, they are Korea Maritime University and Mokpo Maritime College, was only 200 in 1950s. However, they are increased to 300 in early 1960s and to 500 in late 1960s, which is more than double compared to the quota in 1950s. The number of students of Maritime Education Training Institute has been increased continuously during the 1970s, as you can see on this table. The number of student intake was 600 in 1972 and 800 in 1973 and 1,000 in 1975. Busan Maritime High School was founded in 1978 and Incheon Maritime High School in 1981 to supply lower class of marine officers, merchant marine officers. Consequently, the total number of student intake was increased up to 1,320 students in 1981. And more importantly, the increase of student number has been decided proactively. I mean, the training of qualified manpower took precedence over the reinforcement of the shipping fleet. The human resource first, then the ships. This bar chart shows the significant increasing trend. What is it? It is the number of Korean seafarers who work on the foreign flagships during 1967 to 1988. We had only 2,340 seafarers in 1967 who worked on the foreign flagships. However, the number was increased to more than 1,000 in 1975. 10,000 in 1975 and more than 20,000 in 1980. And finally, 42,471 seafarers in 1987, which was the peak year. After 1987, the number of overseas seafarers were decreased gradually, and about 3,000 seafarers are still working on overseas vessels now. Now let's move to next stage, which is the maturation period during mid-1980 to 2016 for about 35 years. The rapid growth of shipping lead to side effect ultimately. Number of ocean-going shipping companies has been increased from 20 companies to 70 companies, which is 3.5 times growth. Gross tonnage of ocean-going ships is also increased from 800,000 to 7 million deadweight ton, which is 9 times growth during the maturation period. The fast-growing Korean shipping industry were being suffered from the global economic recession. As you may know well, the first oil shock was in 1973 due to that Egypt and Syria attacked Israel on October 6th. The Fourth Middle East War was broken out, and oil production has been decreased. Moreover, the second oil shock was in early of 1980s due to the political unrest in Iran. Therefore, Iran reduced the oil production. Other oil-producing countries also participated on this reduction policy, and the oil price has been doubled in early 1980s. The Korean economy were hardest hit by the second oil shock. As you know well, the shipping is capital-intensive industry. Therefore, the bankruptcy of a shipping company led to the banking crisis in Korea. So, consequently, the Korean government should take some countermeasure to overcome the crisis and save the shipping and banks in Korea. That is the shipping business rationalization plan, which was formulated on 29 December 1983. Economic boom was short, but the shipping recession was long. The shipping business rationalization plan was a state-initiated rationalization plan to overcome the shipping recession in 1980s. Finally, 66 shipping companies were merged into 20 companies. Let me explain some details of rationalization plan. 63 shipping companies out of 66 were participated on this plan. It means almost all the shipping companies participated on the plan. The ocean-going shipping companies should be merged into 6 groups, and near-coastal shipping companies should be merged into 4 groups. And the Korea-Japan lines are planned to be merged into 4 groups, but they were merged into 9 groups finally. And special purpose shipping company to be 1 company. Let me explain my personal experience during the recession period. As I already introduced my brief CV, I have graduated from the Maritime Academy in 1977 and went to sea as deck officer and worked on a commercial ship for 4 years. I stopped work on board and got a new job on shore in 1981. In October 1982, I was dispatched to India on a 4 years schedule as company representative. However, I received the order to close the India office 16 months later, in February 1984. So I have to return to the head office in Seoul in April 1984. My company was merged by another company called Pan Ocean Shipping, and I have to start to work on a new company from July 1984. See how dynamic. So that is my personal experience during the shipping recession period. Now I'm going to introduce some important policies for the promotion of Korean shipping industry. I already explained that the Korea Maritime and Port Administration was established, which is separate and independent administration under the Ministry of Transport in 1976. After 20 years, when the KMPA, Korea Maritime and Port Administration, was established, new ministry called Ministry of Maritime and Fisheries Affairs was founded to support maritime and fisheries sector in 1996. Thereafter, we introduced some favorable policies for the shipping, such as exemption of import duty for ships in 1996 and International Ship Registry Scheme in 1998. The scheme is the exemption of acquisition tax and 50% off on property tax, and they can employ more foreign crews. There have been many more favorable policies for the promotion of shipping. Korea Protection and Indemnity Club, we call them KPNI in short, was founded in the year of 2000. Now, 1,057 ships, which is 23 million gross tons, are entered in the KPNI Club in 2019. Ship Investment Company System was introduced in 2002. Tonnage taxation system was introduced in 2005. Korea Maritime Guarantee Insurance Company was set in 2014. Finally, Shipping Reconstruction Plan was formulated in 2017, and Korea Maritime Investment Promotion Agency was established in 2018 to support the maritime industry. These important policies for the promotion of Korean shipping industry. Now, I'm going to introduce two important issues for the ship-related policy. They are, first, International Ship Registry Scheme, which were introduced in 1998, and the second, Tonnage Taxation System, which were introduced in 2005. Let us think about the FOC. Its flag of convenience is a business practice whereby a ship's owners register a merchant ship in a country other than that of the ship's owners in order to avoid financial charges or restrictive regulations in the owner's country. And the ship flies the civil ensign of that country called the flag state. Many Korean ship owners being registered their fleet in FOC to save the crew cost and for better shipping financial purposes. However, the Korea is a country at high risk of conflict all the times. Therefore, we must keep some level of national flagships for the national security and safety. In addition to that, we have to reserve some number of skilled maritime manpower, technology, and know-how for same reason. Consequently, we designate certain number of ships for the national security and safety. We call them as National Inevitable Fleet. Now I'm going to introduce International Ship Registry and Inevitable Fleet in detail. It means the nation's essential international ships. I'm going to explain the details of this in International Ship Registry and Inevitable National Fleet in next lecture. Let's take a break.